Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be painting my countertops. The first thing I'm doing is just removing everything off of them, and once I have that done, the next thing I'll be doing is removing the contact paper that I had put down a few years back. Now I thought that this was going to just peel off really easily, but it didn't, and it took me a couple of hours to get it off, and also the counter was covered in adhesive. I did use some vinegar water to get some of the adhesive off, but I ended up having to sand the countertops with an 80 grit sandpaper to get the rest of the adhesive off of the countertops. Once I was finished sanding with the 80 grit, then I went ahead and I switched over to a 120 grit just to smooth it out some because I didn't want a super rough surface underneath my paint. Once I finish with the sanding, then I just take a dry rag and I am wiping all the dust off. I did this a couple of times and then I went back in with a wet rag and wiped it down a couple more times with that, just to make sure that everything was nice and clean. Next, I am taping all of my trim off. And once I get the trim taped off, then I'll be taping around the entire kitchen sink. Next, I have this drop cloth that already has masking tape on it, and I am running it along the top of the cabinets and covering them just to protect them from the paint and the polycrylic that I'll be using. Now it is time to paint the countertops. I am using paint with primer, just an acrylic paint, an interior-exterior combo. And I started off using this sponge roller, and I wasn't getting the coverage that I wanted from it. So when I start my second coat, I switched over to a fabric roller. And you want to make sure if you get any fuzzes or any hairs or anything like that in your paint to go ahead and pick that out, because we're going to be sealing this with polycrylic and you definitely do not want that stuff sealed into your countertop. Make sure to cut in, and I used a foam brush for this, but you can use any brush that you like. I let my paint dry for at least an hour between coats. And like I said, I ended up doing 4 coats on this. And the reason for that is because the countertops were dark brown. And this is what I have so far. Now I'm taking my box cutter and I'm scoring all of my tape around the sink and along my trim. And then I'm removing my tape because I don't want to get any sealer on it. Now I'm taking a little bit of black paint and a little bit of, it's a charcoal gray, but it has a warm undertone. So in a minute you'll see I'm going to add a little bit of water to both of these paints, and this is for my marbling because I'm doing a marble countertop. And once I do the marbling, some of the beige that's in the base of the gray paint actually comes to the surface and comes out in the paint, and it looks so pretty. I'm just adding a little bit of water. I'm going to mix that up, and then I'll get started on my marbling. I am taking a very small brush and I am just sort of loosely holding it and kind of letting it roll and just making my pattern kind of back and forth, a little, not necessarily zigzag, but just kind of like the stripes you would see in marble. Then I'm going to spritz it with a water bottle, and then I'm going to use a brush to sort of stipple that and brush it out just a little bit. This probably would have worked better if I would have used a soft brush, but my soft brushes were so small, so I'm using this stenciling brush that I had on hand. I'm also going to go in with a paper towel that I just spritzed like one time just to soften this line up. And then anywhere that I want to go darker, I'm just adding more paint and repeating the process. That way I have different shades of the brown that I'm using, and it gives it depth to the countertop. Now, this is my first time doing this technique. I also did not practice before I did this. I just went for it. So you are seeing this for the very first time that I'm doing it. Once I have all my marbling done, I am using Minwax Polycrylic Quick Dry Gloss to coat the countertops. And it is recommended on the can to use 3 coats, so that's what I did. Make sure you read the directions on your can. You don't shake this, you want to stir it. If you shake it, it'll create a lot of bubbles. Now I'm taking a synthetic brush, which is what it called for, but my brush really wasn't that good. And I ended up not really liking how the polycrylic was applying with this brush. So the second coat I did a little bit differently. Now once you get your first coat on, you'll want to let this dry for 2 hours. And you might have to let it dry a little bit longer. It depends on your humidity level. But you want to sand with a 220 grit sandpaper just lightly over it between each coat of polycrylic. And the reason for this is so it will adhere properly, so don't skip this step. And once I was done with that, I brushed everything off with a dry cloth a couple of times just to make sure there was nothing left on it. Now with my second coat of polycrylic, I went in with a foam roller. This was a big mistake. Do not use a foam roller. This left little tiny bubbles everywhere. So what I did after I finished this coat is I went in and I sanded what I could off the top of the bubbles so at least they would pop. They wouldn't be bubbles and, you know, crack my polycrylic in the future. So after I did that, then I went back in with a foam brush, and I had a 1-inch brush, so this was a little time consuming. So this is what I've learned from this process. This is my first time doing it. I would suggest a 3 or 4-inch good foam brush to apply your polycrylic, and you should be good to go with no bubbles. And this is it while I'm waiting for it to dry. I just want to show you the marbling. Once the polycrylic dries, it's a nice hard finish. And now it is time to put everything back in place and show you what the kitchen looks like. I'm so happy with the way my counters turned out. They have never looked so good. I wished I would have done this a long time ago. I am very pleased. It brightens up the kitchen. It just feels good. It makes me want to come in here and, you know, cook more and spend more time in the kitchen. And here they are, dried with everything put back in place. I absolutely love these. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you paint your countertops too and let me know what they turn out like. Have a blessed day and thank you so much for watching.